Hi there, this is C.Carriere. I just wanted to kind of give some background for this observation. I actually chose to split this into two different interviews because I wanted to come from a standpoint of an ELA and social studies teacher and a math and science teacher. I wanted to kind of see how the responses would vary. I used the same set of questions for both, and just wanted to kind of play with it and interview techniques and go from there. For the first section, I interviewed my current student teacher, and she I thought it would be good practice for her and for I both. And she is being interviewed for the position of a third grade ELA and social studies position. So her perspective, of course, is coming in as a brand new teacher from college and no experience whatsoever. So that is the first part that you are about to see. Okay, so you are here interviewing for a third grade ELA position.
Yes.
So I just wanted let's start off just telling us kind of about yourself and anything we need to know.
For sure. So I am about to graduate from UNT with my elementary education EC through 6 with ESL certification. And I've taken all my certification tests and passed. So starting on December 2nd, I'll be able to apply for certification, and I've had lots of experience with kids K through 8th grade, and I'm just very excited to be here.
Awesome. Okay, what is an accomplishment, either personal or professional, that you feel most proud of?
Something I feel most proud of in my student teaching is how far I've came from when I first started in high school during the teacher program to now, because I still have growth in my classroom management and stuff like that, but it's came a long way since I first started.
That's awesome. Okay, what is an area that you feel like you would want to grow in or to get better at?
Probably classroom management, and also like pacing of my lessons and asking higher level questions, which comes with practice.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so as far as like moving into just kind of students and classroom management, what do you believe is the biggest factor that contributes to student learning? Like, do you think it's the teacher? Do you think it's students? What do you feel like, how would you best connect, I guess, with students to ensure that they learn?
It's definitely both. If the kids trust you and they have a relationship with you, they're going to act better and want to learn from you, because if they don't have a relationship, they're not going to learn from you. Also, positive reinforcement. It's a big thing.
How, what is your take on like relationships with students, with kids? Like building relationships?
Yeah, so I think you just have to be authentic, be yourself, show them that you can have fun, but also that you're not going to let them run around the room like chickens with their heads cut.
Okay, so this is kind of a hard one, and if you need to write anything down, you totally can.
Okay.
So I'm going to have you rank some things in order from 1 to 5.
Okay.
With 1 being the most important.
Okay.
And so, okay, so the categories are classroom management,
Okay.
and student engagement,
Okay.
planning, curriculum, and assessment and feedback.
Okay.
And I can tell you in a few. So 1 being the most important and 5 being the least. I mean, they're all important, but 1 being the most important to 5.
Probably classroom management first, and then maybe planning, and then social emotional, and what was the C again?
Curriculum.
Curriculum. I'll probably put that as 4, and then the last one is 5.
Okay. Awesome. So you put classroom management as one, and I know that you had said that was something you wanted
Jasmine
to.
Kirkland, if you're in the building, come to the front office, please.
If that was something that you wanted to grow in.
Yes.
And so I feel like that's important that you put it first, because you know that that's something, you know, that kind of goes with that relationship piece. So since you are interviewing for an ELA position, what do you think like a typical day would look like in your classroom for ELA, just for reading and writing?
Okay, so it'd be like block scheduled, so I'd have multiple classes. I like read alouds. I think that they're important even in older grades, and so I would definitely try to incorporate that as much as I can. I also like reading small groups because it gets kids talking and growing in higher levels. For writing, I think the best way to get a kid to like to write is to have them write about things that they enjoy. So I would definitely put emphasis on that.
So do you think you would ever implement like any stations in ELA or
Oh, for sure.
group work?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, if half of the students were unsuccessful on an activity or assessment, how would you respond? If you had like half the class that got it and then half the class that did not?
I would probably either just scrap the assignment and start from scratch with like a new one, or go over it as a class, or take the kids that didn't know in like small groups, teacher table.
Perfect.
Depends on the importance of.
So how would you assess then for that assignment? How would you tell as the teacher whether they grasped it or not? Like what would the assessment piece look like?
It'd probably be like some kind of summative assessment where I can see that they've got it, whether it's just like a short paragraph or verbally telling me or whatever.
Awesome. Okay, so let's kind of move to intervention. So kind of that piece where students need extra help, but then enrichment for kids that get it. What does that look like for you? Because since you're going to have kids of all levels in your classroom,
Yeah.
just kind of what would that look like?
I would definitely have to scaffold it, and it would depend on what their IEP was or the 504 on how I would help them. But also for the kids that are higher, just giving them like maybe like a deeper thinking question or like extra not work to do, but just like something if they finish faster.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. You have a student who is struggling in class, and it could be, I want to kind of hear this from two different points. You have a student who is struggling with behavior, and then you have a student who is struggling, let's start with that one. So you have a student who's struggling with behavior. What are your action steps to help that student?
Well, first I would talk to them, pull them aside, and just kind of see what's going on. If that doesn't work, I mean, obviously I would be trying positive reinforcement and throughout the whole time, but if that didn't work either, then I would call the parents and talk to them. If that still didn't work, then I would call them to like come in for a conference, and if that still didn't work, then I would involve like admin.
Perfect. Okay, so how about if you have a student who is struggling academically in reading? What are your action steps for that?
I definitely want to know their reading level first, and then, I mean, there's different resources for each district on like things you can assign them on the computer. Also small groups, teacher table, and I mean, if I had to, like even tutoring after school or before.
Excellent. Okay. So I want you to kind of describe to me your classroom management style. What do you think a well-managed classroom looks like, and how do you get to that point with students?
Well, first you have to build the relationships the first couple of days, but you also have to set expectations because if you don't at the beginning, then they try to walk all over you. But I mean, it depends on your kids, because every year you can do like a reward system and it might not work, and you have to be like, oh, I need a different one. But I like positive reinforcement any way I can. That's what I like the best.
Good, and I like how you said you have to set expectations, because that's so important for students to be successful.
And I learned that the hard way. My first like semester of student teaching, I didn't when I walked in, and they just thought of me as like their little buddy, and I was like, oh, and it took forever to fix it.
But that's real. I mean, that's realistic, and now you know, and like you can go in, and that's how you learn.
Yeah.
So, okay, as far as parents and communication, what kind of relationship do you want to have with parents, and how will you achieve it?
Definitely a good relationship. And I mean, I guess it all starts whenever they come to meet the teacher.
Yeah.
Just like building a connection with them, and then also just like weekly emails updating them. If you ever need anything, just like reach out.
Good. So yes, communication is so important. Okay, what are your top 3 priorities by the end of your first week of school?
Then your first week.
And you can think, I mean, I know that's a top 3 priorities by the end of the first week of school. And this can be students, parents, just whatever.
Definitely set the expectations, routines, and also just like building relationships with the kids. It'd be great to learn all of their names before it's over. That's important.
Yes.
I know there was one teacher that one of my brothers had, and it impressed me. She had like the pictures of all the students. She was a first grade teacher. Pictures of all of them from the previous year, and she had their names with it. And so for me, the teacher, when they walked up to the door, she's like, "Oh, hi, you must be Cody." Like, and the kids were like, "How did you already know my name?"
That's
and it
awesome.
left like a big
An impression on them.
yeah,
So because she did the research. Yeah. Okay, so this is kind of switching to like your team and campus. So what are your expectations for working with your team? Like, what are you looking for in a team?
I want it to be collaborative. There's some schools where they play all by themselves, and there's some where they split it up, and splitting it up is definitely what I would like. Just because you bounce off ideas, and you can also get to make your portion of it even stronger, share more time.
What about as far as like, even not just like the academic side, like what kind of relationship do you feel like is important for a team to have?
A family relationship. You spend so much time with your team. So.
Yes. Okay. And then how do you think you would contribute to our campus?
I think I bring a fresh perspective on lessons, because anytime someone new comes in, they might have a different idea. Also, just like thinking of new creative things to implement, whether it be like something as simple as like a new reward system, or even like things bigger like community outreach and stuff like that.
So what kind of made you interested in applying for this position?
I've always wanted to be a teacher, and through my student teaching, I've seen that more and more, and I just love coming to teach the kids, and they teach me so much too. So that's one of the things.
And then long-term goals, like where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? Like, do you have any higher things than being in the classroom, or just?
Yeah, I want to start off in the classroom, but eventually maybe like a PE coach, or maybe like a small group intervention. I don't know. It depends on
where things take you.
Yeah, where things take.
Okay, this is kind of going back to the team one, but if you feel like you were struggling with something in reading, like teaching it or executing it, planning it, what would your kind of approach be at that point? Like, would you be afraid to go speak to your teammates, or what do you think you would do if you found yourself in that situation?
I hope I wouldn't be scared. I want to have like a good relationship with them. Someone would be able to just be like, hey, how do you do this? And I'd be like, oh, you do it like that.
Yes, and I feel like that's important because everybody learns from one another. Okay, is there anything that I didn't ask that you feel like you could offer or share or just want to discuss?
Let me think for a minute. Let's see. Well, I guess like every school is different. So how does this school go about like the kids with 504s or accommodations?
It's a great question. So at the beginning of every year, or from whenever you're hired, of course, you'll get a binder full of all of your accommodations for your students, and kind of go through the teachers, for the speech teacher, the special education teacher, and just kind of review all of those to make sure that you know what they are. And we'll have, meetings once a year for those to kind of set those up. But we do a good job making sure that you know who those students are and what their accommodations are and how, to best reach those. It's kind of like a round table that we do at the beginning of the year.
For sure, that's awesome.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, and if you have any other questions, you can let me know.
Thank you so much.
For the second part of my interview, I interviewed my colleague who is a math and science teacher, and I asked her to play the part of interviewing for her current position. So if she were interviewing for a math and science position, I wanted her to answer those questions coming into it as she was interviewing for math and science position. And she has had, several years of experience. I want to say 15 maybe. So her perspective was a little different, but, and so that's what you're about to see now. All right. Thank you for being here today. So I wanted you just to tell us just some highlights about you and share an accomplishment that you are most proud of that can be professional or personal.
I enjoy teaching math and science the most, although I have taught all subjects before. I enjoy incorporating games in my classroom because I feel like that keeps students engaged and excited about learning. Professional, I've been nominated 3 years in a row for Teacher of the Year, but I am the Susan Lucci of winners when it comes to that. So, but just the thought that it's recognized would be an accomplishment.
Okay, what is an area that you feel like you would want to grow in?
I would like to grow in incorporating writing across the curriculum. So incorporating writing in my math and in my science classroom so that they see that writing is not just a class that they take in school.
I love that, it's awesome. So I want to switch a little bit to students, like teaching and classroom management. What do you believe is the biggest factor that contributes to student learning?
Students have to know that they are respected and that they're listened to before that they are going to want to pay attention in a classroom. So I think building relationships is going to be the number one priority, especially right at the beginning of the year, because the more students know you care, the more they're gonna want to pay attention to what you're saying.
Yes, I agree. I think relationships are the most important thing. So I'm going to ask you to, and if you want to use just to rank the following things in order from 1 to 5, with 1 being the most important.
Okay.
Your categories are classroom management, student engagement, planning, curriculum, and then assessment and feedback. or assessment or feedback.
Okay. I think that classroom management is gonna be number one. You are gonna get nothing done if there is not a set expectation of how your classroom will run.
Mm-hmm.
I think that next would be your curriculum, because that is going to foster what you teach.
Mm-hmm.
After that, it's what you plan. And in the planning needs to take in the engagement. And then the assessment and the feedback, while it's not last, that assessment is going to also contribute to what you plan for student engagement and feedback to your kids. It's all just a circle. I don't know that there's a ranking, but I think if you don't have a set expectation, you are gonna spend all of your time micromanaging all of the little fires rather than getting things accomplished.
I agree. I think, yep, I agree. Okay, so if we were to walk in your math or your science block, either one, what do you think that would look like? You can either one.
Controlled chaos. Because if the students are engaged, they're gonna be talking. I don't like to sit, so I don't think my kids like to sit for long, so we do a lot of things that are up and moving. We will play games with ABCD, and it's like 4 corners, because then they're not sitting at their table writing things down, but if they go to different corners, they can justify their answer, and we can learn with and from each other. So there's gonna be controlled chaos, because they know what they're supposed to be doing, and 90% of the time, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, but I'm not a sit in your desk type of person.
So in math class, do you see yourself incorporating stations?
Yes, we do a 15 to 20 minute mini lesson. We do a 5 to 10 minute practice, and then we do stations.
Okay.
Every day, Monday through Thursday. Fridays are catching up. We were out on Monday, so we would do stations on a Friday. It's open to what needs to be done to make sure the week ends smoothly.
And then would one of your stations be teacher table, and so then is that where you're going to get like your assessment and feedback and things, so you can watch the children and work with them? Okay.
So in math, I do 4 stations, and they are always the same 4. Teacher table, a hands-on activity, math, facts, and technology. And so they do 2 each day, so I see each group twice a week.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so let's say that you teach a lesson and you do station work and you do independent work, and then you see that half of your class is unsuccessful on the activity or the assessment. How would you respond?
I would give it back to them. We would have a classroom snowball fight, and we would put it in the trash, and we would do a reteach, and we would either get the same activity or one that is identical, and we would do it again. Because if half my class did not do well, that's on me. That's not on them.
Yep, I agree. I think that's a great response. Okay, so we kind of touched on this a little bit, but small group instruction and what it looks like. So, and you said you met with your groups twice a week, but how do you, is that scaffolded, or is it the same activity? How do you, I guess, decide how kids are grouped each week?
The kids are grouped by their abilities, so that I can scaffold the small group.
Okay.
Their table groups are random, so when we do group work at our tables, they get to learn with and from each other. But my small group during station is done by ability, so I can scaffold. So one group is not always doing the same thing the other groups are doing.
Okay, and this, so for your intervention and enrichment, I guess, since you're scaffolding it, it's the same maybe concept, and then you're just enhancing it or bringing it down to meet their needs?
So one group, we work on the fourth grade aligned TEAC.
Okay.
And then 2 groups are practicing what we're learning and doing, and the other one we are taking it into word problems and an enrichment, more challenging piece.
So if you have students then at each station who, like if the enrichment group, I guess for fast finishers, do you have extra activities and things that they can work on?
Brain teasers and math riddles and Sudoku and those kind of things that are a little more challenging but still math related.
Love that. Okay, so if you have a student who is struggling in class, and it could be academic or behavior, what are your action steps?
First thing is they are coming closer to me, because proximity to me usually is a life changer. But I'm a roamer in the classroom, so I usually put it closest to like where the computer station is, but I have my little clicker that I roam around the room, but all eyes. I mean, you can look at them. I always give them a nonverbal attention getter. So I have one kid that I just snap, and he knows that that's for him. And he usually, you can see him doing something, and he'll sit right up and change the action. But then we talk about expectations, what is appropriate, what is not. And if necessary, you get the parents involved so that they can help to reinforce what the expectations are, coming from different people at different times, but all saying the same words usually makes a big difference.
Sure. Okay, so describe your classroom management style. What do you think a well-managed classroom looks like, and how do you attain it? How do you get there?
Again, you start by building the relationships, getting students to know that we are here to learn, but we are also here to learn with and from each other, that this is a partnership, and that if they need help, they are more than welcome to ask questions. We build a community, kind of almost like a family, and we understand that there are sometimes rifts within a family, but you have to work through that, because you don't get to get rid of your family, and you don't get to not follow the expectations at school. So we do a lot of that. I try to make the rules or expectations, whatever you want to call them, as minimal but as effective as possible. So respecting yourself, respecting others, respecting the school, and making sure that we talk about what that looks like, what that sounds like, what that feels like. And then we'll play games where it's a good example and a non-example, and we talk about why would this work and why would that not.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, I want to move on. Sorry. I want to kind of move into parents and communication. So, and I know you just touched on this a little bit with classroom management, but what kind of relationship do you strive to have with parents? And how do you get there as far as from beginning of the year to, I guess, the end of the year?
Meet the teacher is a big thing. I want the kids to come in and feel welcome and to be excited to come to school, but I need parents to also see what the classroom looks like, what the classroom feels like. I want to introduce myself to them, and I make sure that they understand that we are a team, that working together is what's going to help their child be successful. And you always kind of do the Oreo thing. If there's an issue, you got to make sure you say 1 or 2 positive things before you bring up a negative, and then end with a positive. I send brag tag emails, like that's the name of it. I'll just type a brag tag and say, hey, just wanted you to know so-and-so helped pick up all the trash in the floor at the end of the day. He gets to sign a square on the hundreds chart. Just make sure you let him know that his classmates and I are proud of him. And so I send 2 or 3 of those a week, sometimes more if it's a good week.
Sure.
So just letting them know that I treat them like my kids. And so their success is my number one.
How do parents, like, whenever do you get feedback from parents, and they really appreciate you sending brag tag emails, or if they do well on an assignment or something
Yes.
like that? Yeah.
I get a lot of thank you for letting us know. I sent an email that your student got an A on their first vocabulary quiz, and every parent emailed back, thank you for letting us know, we did this to celebrate, appreciate that, blah blah blah. So they enjoy hearing the good things.
Sure. Okay, so what ideally would your top 3 priorities be by the end of the first week of school? And it can be academic, non-academic, just by the end of the first week, what are your priorities with your students?
The students feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
The students feel loved, and the students feel like they belong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's gonna be academics down the road,
Sure.
but first week, I want them to make sure that they are safe, comfortable, and feel like they are welcome in my classroom.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I want to kind of shift into team dynamics and campus dynamics. So what are your expectations for working with a team? Like, what do you want? What are you looking for coming in to a new position on it with a team that you're joining?
I would want to make sure that everyone is heard. We all have great ideas, whether it's your content area or something you've done in the past. I know I am a hard worker, and I want to make sure that everybody's doing what they can do to help build a relationship with our team and with our students. Because kind of like parents, the more we work together and with each other, the more success our collaborative classrooms will be.
Yes. So if you find yourself having trouble with content like math or science,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think your first steps are? Do you feel like you would be able to go to somebody and ask for help, or just what would you kind of do if you found yourself needing some extra assistance?
I would first make sure that I understand our curriculum that we're supposed to be using, and if I don't understand that, I would go to either our other content teacher, or to the coaches, or to a math or science teacher that teaches a grade above or a grade below, because they're gonna have an idea of what that's supposed to look like and sound like and feel like. So I do not have a problem coming in and saying, I don't get it, because if I don't get it, then I can't teach it. And so my job is to know my content, and you have to know a little more than your content, because when those questions come up, you want to be positive on what your answers should and shouldn't be.
Okay, so can you give me an example of a time where you specifically supported your previous team, or your team that you will be coming from?
We had a teacher who got sick in the middle of the day and had to leave, so we split her class. One teacher had a student teacher, so the student teacher was getting her observation that day, so I took half and my other partner took half, and so we just made sure that all the students were in the class. The student teacher was still able to get her observation done without extra people in there, because we've all been there and done that and know how nervous that would. I mean, you're nervous already if you stick 5 extra kids who have no idea who you are. So we just split the team in 2, or the class in 2, and we each took that on, so that student teacher was successful, the kids had a class, and we got through the afternoon.
That's awesome. So how do you feel, what do you feel like you would bring to our campus if we were to hire you on? What are your biggest qualities that you feel like, or attributes that you feel like you would bring?
I get along with others well, whether that be teammates, classmates, students, any of that. I share ideas probably a little too much. Because if it works in your class, you want other people to say, hey, this works. I found something new, check this out. And then just a solid math and science teaching experience that I'm always willing to help and share with others.
Okay, so I just have two more questions, and I probably should have asked these at the beginning whenever we were talking about introductions, but so the first one is, why are you interested in this position? I
would like a change of scenery and a new team to work with. I enjoyed where I was, but always looking for something new and a new group of students to enhance and engage with.
Okay, and the last one, what are your long-term goals? Like, where do you see yourself, and not like 5 years, 10 years, and if it's the same, that's fine. If it's not, just kind of where would you like to end up?
I have been told multiple times that I need to go into the coaching world of school. And I can see myself doing that, but not until I'm tired of the classroom. And right now, I still enjoy the classroom. So I don't know if it'll be 5 or 10 years, but I think it's one of those that when you know, you know. Sure. And so that would probably be my next step.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here today, and I really appreciate your time.
Welcome.
Hi there. So I wanted to kind of discuss some of the interview questions and just some things that I noticed going through the interview. I am really glad that I did this activity with 2 different people, because I felt like there were some things that I changed from the first interview to the second. And then there were still some things that I would even change going into an interview in the future. So I started just with having the applicant tell me about themselves, because I feel like that's important to give them a chance to share and to discuss, and just anything that they feel is necessary. What I probably would have changed or do differently is have them tell me like how many years teaching experience, what grades they had taught previously, before going into just the questions. I feel like I was really nervous for this, to ask questions and kind of be in charge of it. So I think that's why I didn't think to throw that in there. I did like the where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years or long-term goals, because that would give me as an administrator an idea of how long that this person would maybe want to stay on campus. Because obviously you want to stay away from the legal questions, or rather illegal questions, why are you leaving your current position, that sort of thing. So the classroom management questions, I feel like, were really telling. Probably my favorite one was this one, number 6, because I don't know, it's not really a trick question because they're all, equally important, but it's just interesting to hear the reasoning why people rate things differently, because both of my candidates did them differently. And I found that I tended to agree more with the math and science candidate, because she was an experienced teacher, of course, so I knew going in what I felt, was the right answer. And then I just left this ELA because that's where I started. Another thing that I found was really important was the unsuccessful, this one, number 8, because to me, I would want to hear a teacher say, if half the class was unsuccessful, that it's on them, because there was some error in communication. And so there would be a reteach that was necessary. And I feel like that would give a kind of a good picture, a good idea of where your candidate's teaching philosophy was. Small group instruction and intervention and enrichment, I felt like these questions were kind of redundant. I think I would probably take one out and just ask one or the other going forward. I liked this one, this struggling one about action steps, because I feel like roping in the parents and then conferencing with the student was kind of what I was looking for. Okay, this one I do not believe I asked, and I wish that I would have. I put it in here, and I guess I just skimmed over it on accident. But these are our resource programs at my current campus, and I feel like it's going to be really important to hear a teacher or a teacher candidate rather discuss a time when they have issues with special needs students. And because the reality of it is that we're going to have special needs students in our classrooms all the time. And you're going to want to know how the teacher may or may not go into handling that. For parent communication, I'm big on that personally. I feel like that's the best way to reach the student. And so I would want to know that as an administrator, and I would hopefully want to get people on campus who were, on the same page as me about that. Top priorities for the first 3 weeks of school. I put that in there because I feel like, what I was kind of looking for was procedures and then relationships, because academics will come with time, and, the first 3 weeks of school, you're just trying to establish that safe, close-knit environment. I also put questions on here about team and campus, because to me, working with a team is just as important as the curriculum and the educational piece, because if you don't have a good, solid relationship with your team, or you don't have the right attitude in going into working with a team, then I feel that you're going to set yourself up for failure. And as an administrator, I would really want to know how these people, would work on a team and what their philosophy is. And I would only be I would prefer candidates that were, not afraid to ask for help, or not afraid to say, hey, I made a mistake, or I don't know how to do this, because that's how we learn as educators and as adults. So all in all, I feel like my questions were decent. But like I said, there would be some that I would go back and I would change. It was also really interesting to hear the difference between a candidate going in from college, like straight out of college, versus a candidate that would be coming in with years of experience. And it's hard not to, judge is not the right word, but it's hard not to listen and be like, ooh, I don't know if I would have said that, or I don't know, here or there, but they don't know what they don't know. So I feel like, everybody has to start somewhere and get some grace. So, anyways, that is where I was, and I thoroughly enjoyed this assignment. But like I said, I was nervous and there were things that I would change, but, anyway, that's that. Thanks.